back to Review Junction. I'm Zachary Rossiter.
And I'm Kyle Wiseman.
And today we are going to be trying something a little bit different than we used to do. You're going to notice that the format is going to be much different than it used to be. And it's going to be a lot more free flow. Also, when Kyle starts releasing his reviews, you're going to notice they may be different than mine. To go one-on-one with the free flow.
Well, I'm doing more of a professional kind of thing.
I just want mine to be more loose, just two guys talking movies, kind of.
Yeah.
For today's review, we're doing Batman v Superman.
Let me just say, this is Zach's review, but you're going to hear a few comments from me.
Alright, so to start, I figured we'd talk about maybe the history of Man of Steel briefly, just to give some
context.
Yeah, some context to the movie. So obviously Man of Steel was much more grounded than what we'd ever seen before. It was much more realistic Superman.
The only Superman movie worth watching, in my opinion.
I can kind of agree with that. I don't mind Superman Returns, but anyway, Man of Steel was a much more grounded take on Superman.
Holy fuck, this ice cream's good, man.
So Batman v Superman. Some people consider, a large basis of the DC fans consider the most important comic book movie to ever be made. Alright, Kyle, let them know what you think.
Let me just say that I think Frank Miller's concept of a human going against this god is a great idea in some manner.
It's good as an idea.
But he executed it incredibly poorly. And to
It's David and Goliath. That's what it's meant to be, though. It's not meant to be a realistic kind of concept. It's meant to be a metaphor.
But it's executed poorly. An
To
executed
each their
poorly
own.
metaphor is still a bad metaphor.
That's to each their own, though. That's depending on how you take it, how you perceive.
So I'm coming into this movie with a foul taste in my mouth right from the beginning because I don't like the comic book itself.
And I'm a huge DC fan. I was always a DC fan, so I came in. I personally loved Man of Steel, and Kyle actually did as well. Yeah.
Surprisingly. Man of Steel was actually a really solid film.
Yeah. I personally was so excited for Batman v Superman. Everything leading up to it looked amazing. It was exactly what I pictured for a Frank Miller adaptation of that storyline. And what we got was good. I liked it a lot. But it, it was good. I liked it a lot. But it was not as good as it could have been. So I'd just like to address what I liked about it and what I didn't like about it. And Kyle can weigh in when he feels necessary. Mm-hmm. And you can expect a lot of laughing, I guess, out of him. First, I want to talk about the score. You cannot falter Hans Zimmer. He is time and time again proven that he can write an amazing score.
He really can.
He proved this with Man of Steel, which in my opinion is better than John Williams' version in the original Superman movie. Would you agree or no? Kyle loves
It's a hard one. I like John Williams more than Hans Zimmer. But
I like
Hans Zimmer also brought us Inception, and that is a great score.
And
he brought us that Modern Warfare 2 theme, which is...
I'm not as crazy about that theme, but I do enjoy it. The score in Batman v Superman, the way it played off of Man of Steel was amazing. I know a lot of people aren't a fan of Lex Luthor, we'll get into that later, but the score for Lex Luthor, in my opinion, was flawless. They literally took Superman's theme from Man of Steel, and it's the exact same note progression, and they brought it down in pacing, and they just changed it very slightly, and it sounds so sinister. It's like
I can't remember.
It's a yin yang to Superman basically, which Lex Luthor is. He's his yin yang. So just a thumbs up to Hans Zimmer for that. As well, we had Wonder Woman. I mean, no one argues that Wonder Woman is, if not the best thing about DC, what DC's done yet, is one of them, at the very least.
Well, Gal Gadot just played that role so spectacularly.
And even in the few minutes she had in Batman v Superman, she was amazing. But we'll get to that later, too. The score for Wonder Woman. The second that metal guitar kicked in, everybody, no matter how you felt about the movie up until this point, everybody in the theaters was on it. Like, they were up, and you could tell there was just an essence of life brought to the theaters.
It energized the whole movie-going experience.
Then we have, just one moment. Obviously, we have Clark's score, which personally, I from same as Man of Steel, I loved it. I think it's one of the most emotional scores. I have every song from Man of Steel and Batman v Superman on my iPod.
Jeez.
Well, my phone now. And I listen to them regularly. I absolutely adore them. And finally, we have Kyle's favorite character in the movie, Ben Affleck as Batman.
Oh, fucking Jesus.
Now, most people would actually say that Batman was the best thing about the movie. In fact, most people did say that Batman v Superman. Kyle, on the other hand, we'll get into later about the characters, felt differently.
You want me to talk about him now?
No, we'll get there. But the score was very dark, and it was Frank Miller's Batman. The score was very, very sinister, almost more sinister than Lex Luthor's, which I thought was just amazing. It was perfect for this type of Batman, this old, gritty, hardened Batman. It felt like when you heard the score, like he'd seen a lot of things in his day, and he just was not taking anything from this alien. All right, so, Well, another thing I liked about the movie. Or do you have anything else you'd like to?
Not from the
interject
music.
for the music?
I enjoyed the soundtrack.
Yeah, I love the soundtrack. I think I got that across. All right, so the visuals. Personally, I think this is, if not the best, at least the top 3 best looking superhero movies of all time.
I didn't like the color correction. That being said,
I loved.
But Snyder's visuals are.
Snyder, like, say what
impressive.
you will about Snyder. Yes, he's not a good storyteller, which we'll get into later. I don't see why people were so upset with the story. Like, I went in fully knowing that I was not getting a great story. It was Snyder. I wasn't going in watching a Nolan movie. You're dumb if you think you're doing that. Like, that's on you. That's not on Snyder. You should know that you're going in.
It's an excuse for a director, though. A director still has to make a story.
But you've seen things Snyder's done, so you know what you're getting. It was David Goyer and Zack Snyder, and you know that with the things that they've done in the past, you know what you're getting, right? Like, if you go to a restaurant and you order a piece of food and it's crappy, and you go back and you order the same thing and you eat it and you go, what the hell, that's gross. Like, you're an idiot. Come on now.
Well, I think you're exaggerating the details there.
Alright.
Snyder's had good and bad films. So to say that he's a poor writer in general, I don't think that's warranted.
He's had hits, but I honestly don't think those are out of, like, a structure that he's accumulated or, like, through his own personal talents. I think those are luck based when he has, like, a good story hit. Because if you watch, like, Dawn of the Dead, Sucker Punch, Batman v Superman, fucking these,
those are poorly written stories.
You know what you're getting. Like, you know when you watch a Zack Snyder movie, you know that you're going to get a visual treat. And that's what I've always enjoyed about Zack Snyder's movies. I know that visually, I knew going in that I was going to get a visual treat on the characters that I enjoyed. And I got exactly that. So yeah, the visuals. Superman suit. Not much different from Man of Steel.
Pretty identical, I found.
They changed the colors very slightly. I think they brightened them up a little bit for
I
Superman.
couldn't see that.
But the color palette really darkens things down.
Which I didn't like. I thought the color correction was a bit...
I think it suited the movie. The movie's a very dark story, and it's like...
Yeah, but Man of Steel was kind of dark in its own way. I felt that benefited from better colors.
It's more gritty, I found, though. Man of Steel was a very gritty story, whereas Batman v Superman was a very dark story. And that is also a fault, I think. I think that there are moments where Zack Snyder almost forgets what world he created in Man of Steel. Whether or not those were producer choices or his choices, I think they were his choices. They didn't work for the movie. So...
You mean from a visual perspective?
No, that'd be more of a... No, you're right. That'd be more of a choice for the story, in my opinion. I think visually, it looked amazing. Batman suit, for example. Both armored and non-armored.
No.
That's Frank Miller. That's Frank Miller's Batman suit right there. That's a spot on like rendition of what a movie version of that should be. Like,
It's a spot on rendition of a terrible suit.
Don't like Frank Miller.
He doesn't like Nolan's suit though.
I don't. I think Nolan's suit is absolutely garbage. I think it looks ridiculous, and I think Christian Bale was one of the worst choices for Batman.
Whereas I find Affleck's Batman suit is more science fiction than
Nolan's
a realistic
Yeah.
take on Batman.
So maybe Nolan's Batman would have worked better in Man of Steel's universe. But I think that Batman would get
But they're the same
creamed
universe.
in a second by Superman.
Yeah. And that's what I think should have happened to Affleck.
Lex Luthor. A lot of people didn't like the way Lex Luthor looked. I thought it was cool. I thought it was a really cool take. Like, yeah, he's supposed to be the savvy businessman. And, you know, he's kind of, you know, the politician, the evil politician. He's really, like, you never know his true character underneath. You know, he's that good at masquerading. But honestly, I never really looked at Lex Luthor as a very impressive character. I thought he was kind of a worse version of the Kingpin.
Here's where our perspectives differ. Whereas I liked the character of Lex Luthor and how he's portrayed in Batman v Superman. But the actor was a very poor fit.
I think, well, the first choice I had, I remember, they were going for Joaquin Phoenix when they were first making the movie.
He definitely could have done better than Jesse.
And there was rumors that they were going to get Bryan Cranston, but those I don't think were ever made credible. Breaking Bad.
Yeah, I don't think he would.
I think everybody just wanted it because of the bald head. But personally, I think Jesse Eisenberg is a great actor.
He's got his moments, I suppose.
He's won several awards.
Guess who else has won several awards undeservedly?
Who?
Jennifer Lawrence.
Alright, I'll agree with that. Hey, girly. You want to come up?
Come here.
Alright, she got to sit down, though.
Come here.
Good girl. It's alright. But yeah, a lot of people bring up the fact that Jesse Eisenberg almost played the Riddler as Lex Luthor. He was much more like the Riddler. The way he was kind of like more, what's the word I'm looking for? Jumpy, almost. You know? He was more of a jumpy character, more of a hyper kind of character. Lex Luthor's never really done that. But like I said, I'm not a big fan of Lex Luthor as a character in general. He's a boring Kingpin. So, I mean, like, if you take him and you make him more interesting, how I feel that Jesse Eisenberg took that character and made him more interesting. And the things that he does throughout the movie are just, story-wise, well, we won't get into that just yet. The things that he does in the movie are genius. I think I'm actually quite impressed with the level of complexity in Lex Luthor's plan that Zack Snyder was able to write. He wasn't told exactly correctly in terms of pacing, but the level of complexity in that plan, I never thought Snyder would have been able to pull out something like that.
It's probably more of a Goyer.
Possibly, yes, but Gore's pretty bad at writing too. Alright, I want to talk about some things that personally, and Kyle's probably going to get a kick out of this and have a hating out, things I liked that a lot of people didn't like. Like I said before, the story. I had low expectations for the story, and I came out of it liking it a lot.
Let's just say I couldn't even finish the movie. That's how bad the story is.
There are moments I really didn't like, and I'll get into that when I talk.
Oh, we probably should have told them that we watched the director's cut together.
Yeah.
So the extended edition.
Yeah, we watched the extended cut. I watched the theatrical cut in theaters, and it wasn't good. It was just a mess. It was a jumbled mess. It didn't make any sense, and I was like, "What is this?" And then when the extended cut was released, I was like, "All right, I'll watch it." And it fills in a lot of blanks.
Unfortunately, it's 2.5 hours too long.
Think you're funny, don't you? All right. So before we get into more of the story, because I just want to. I'll address some of the things I didn't like about the story and things I didn't like. But first, let's talk about. I'd like to talk one more thing about Jesse Eisenberg. The Granny Peach tea scene. I think it's one of my favorite scenes in any comic book movie. Just to fill in, give some context to what we're talking about. He has a politician over, and he's trying to get her to sign off on allowing for kryptonite to be used as a weapon. I believe that's what's happening. And she's not having any of it. She's like, you can try to pretend this is a deterrent, but you're just trying to basically allow me to give the public weapons against Superman. And she says something along the lines of like, you can piss in a jug and call it Granny's peach tea. I don't care what you call it. I'm not buying it. Great line. Really well written. Fits her character really well. Then later in the movie, when Superman finally agrees to go to Washington to talk to politicians about his actions, whether or not he should be having to work under the government's rule or not, she's sitting in her chair and she notices a jar full of what looks like piss. And she slowly starts to turn it, and it says Granny's peach tea, because Lex Luthor has actually tricked her, making her think that she should head down this road for deterring him when his plan was actually sought elsewhere in the film. And then he kills her. He blows up the place, kills a bunch of people, including her, and only she really catches... She's the only person who really knows his plan. He lets her see his plan in that last second, right? He lets her see what he's really thinking. So I think, I personally think it's one of the best.
His performance just
doesn't bring about...
It doesn't resonate with me.
And
so for that scene itself, it never resonated with me in any way.
I can see that if you're not connecting with a character, obviously you're not gonna enjoy big moments.
But if he was played by a better actor, perhaps that scene would have been...
Maybe that's all they needed for the main population to enjoy the movie.
Dynamic.
Needed a better actor in Lex Luthor, because you may not like Ben Affleck. You may not like Ben Affleck, but most people love Ben Affleck Batman because
Ben Affleck is not a good actor. He's a mediocre actor.
I said this
and a great director
for years now,
Ben
and
Affleck's
I've always said it, and I even enjoyed Daredevil. Whether or not you want to, turn off this review now because you're like, well, this has no credibility.
Yeah.
I do. I've always enjoyed Ben Affleck's acting. I thought he's been a really great actor my whole life. I think his little brother's a better actor. Casey Affleck's a way better actor than Ben Affleck, but he's like a top line actor in my opinion. Like he's like up there with played Gordon, Detective Gordon.
Gary Oldman.
He's up there with actors like Gary Oldman, and that's a whole nother level.
I don't know if I'd put Casey Affleck up there, but I
know
exactly where I put Ben Affleck.
Watch Manchester by the Sea, and you will hold him up as high. This is Casey Affleck's best movie.
Ben Affleck's like your C-grade actor.
B.
He's the kind of guy that you find
B.
You can't find any better.
He's actor. A B for Batman, Kyle. All right. So,
Like a whole cringy face for me.
I was like, I'm watching The Office now, so I was like, we can get an Office joke out of this. All right, so also another thing I liked a lot about the movie, and I know this has been beat over the head by people who... This is like the big thing that kind of separates people who love Batman v Superman and hate Batman v Superman. And it's been hit over the head again and again, and my group of people will keep saying it, and your group of people will keep going against it. The Martha scene. I like the Martha scene. I don't know why people hate it so much.
Are you talking about the ending?
No, when Batman beats Superman in the fight.
I know you're going for spoilers, but like... Yeah. Ending spoilers are definitely something you should avoid.
These are complete spoiler reviews, my side. Anyway, I'll normally address them at the beginning, I forgot. But Kyle will probably do non-spoilers, I'm guessing. You like to do non-spoilers. Alright, so this idea of him standing over Superman after he beats him, and him not killing Superman because Superman says Martha. A lot of people think it's dumb because it's like, oh, their moms have the same name, so he just stops fighting him. That's dumb. That's not the reason he stops fighting him. It's not because their moms have the same name. That's just the trigger. That's what makes Batman step back and go, oh my god, I'm exactly what I'm fighting against. I'm becoming what I'm fighting against. It's actually why I like the dark, gritty version of Batman. A lot of people are like, he's killing. That's wrong. This isn't your everyday Batman. And Batman has killed in the comics before. Don't kid yourself. He has. Yes, there was a large section of the comics where Batman would not kill, and it fit really well with the Joker's character. But that's not exactly who Batman is. If you read more comics, you'll know that. So, Batman is ready to kill, and he's killed before, and he's at the darkest place he's ever been. This has been established through...
This has not been established.
Okay, this has been established poorly. I'll agree with that. This has been established poorly through Robin's death.
Yeah, a Robin suit that says like "ha ha" on it, that is not established.
For DC fans, though, we know what that is right away. But I agree. For people who don't know anything about the DC universe, they're going to be like, what's
that's
going
literally
on?
like a 5-second scene too. Like, that doesn't count.
I agree. There should have been things cut out of Batman v Superman, like we'll get into later, the Justice League scenes.
One of the main problem with Batman v Superman is the fact that there wasn't a Batman movie before in this universe.
I agree. I do agree with that. I think that there should have been Batman should have been the second movie before Batman v Superman. But I'm a DC fan, so if they say you're going to Batman v Superman movie, obviously I'm going to be Smiles. And I'm going to be.
When you showed me that trailer, I was like, "This is going to be off."
And
I don't know if I can see that in theaters, Zach. And what do you know? I never saw it in theaters.
All right, so back on topic. The Martha scene. So he stands over Martha. He's got the spear, the kryptonite spear. And kryptonite, yes, it's a dumb concept, but just go with it, all right? We all agree it's a stupid concept. But you know what? There's a lot of stupid concepts in comics.
Yeah,
only
that shouldn't be translated to movies.
A boy bitten by a radioactive spider now has the ability to climb on walls and shoot webs. That's dumb. That's stupid. That's unrealistic as hell. But guess what? We live with it because there's a cool character underneath. Right? Go on. So, alright, so Martha, back on topic. He's standing over him, kryptonite spear. Superman says, Martha, save Martha. Batman steps back and realizes he's becoming everything that he's fighting against. That he's looked at this alien through, what do you call it? Tunnel vision. This whole time. He's only seen...
Or rose-colored glasses.
Yes, yeah, I think that's another expression for the term I'm trying to use. He's only looked at him in this light.
He's got one perspective, basically.
And this one moment allows him to become a boy again. And look at the world through that view for just a moment. To the moment when he swore to himself that he would fight against this type of action. And that he's becoming this exact type of action. So it almost brings him back. It almost takes Batman out of being a bad guy to being a good guy again. And I thought it was perfect. I actually had goosebumps in theaters when it happened.
Well, remind me when we start talking about Ben Affleck's performance.
That's what ruined it for you.
Yes, I actually think the scene would have been quite powerful. But
if
Ben Affleck is so stoic throughout the entire movie, where he sports the exact same stern expression, and I get that some Batman fans like that idea in which he doesn't show much emotion, but this is where I like Christian Bale's Batman a lot more.
Boo boo.
He cries once or
Rachel's
twice.
Dead. Boo boo.
He cries once or twice. Anyway.
We'll do that some other day, but I can't stand him as Batman. It's just Christian Bale is not.
Christian Bale's Batman actually evokes emotions. He feels like a real person.
Not the emotions Batman is supposed to evoke.
Well, anyway, the Ben Affleck version of Batman is basically just a caricature. He's generic in many ways. A generic, stoic action hero.
Do you know why he's generic, though? Why you consider him generic? Because you've seen a lot of characters like him. Because a lot of characters copy Batman. He's the original.
This is like a 2000-something movie. I don't know, when did it come out? 14? Anyway, yeah, this...
I know what you mean. They should be adapting the Batman to be different. But
Batman should be a new character that adapts with the times.
The way that Marvel is doing it. Maybe that's why you like Man of Steel. And maybe that's why you like Wonder Woman.
Christopher Nolan's Batman is entirely different from many iterations that we've seen before.
That said, though, like, that's Frank Miller's Batman. And
Frank Miller's Batman sucks. I might get a lot of hate for that. But it does.
I don't think so, man. I own Batman.
And for being honest here, Frank
The Dark Knight. returns, and I think it's a great watch. Personally, I think there are cheesy things about it, but I do think it's a great watch, and I actually think there are lots of things in the original that they should have adapted more into the story, and we're actually going to get into the things I didn't enjoy, and you'll see more of what I'm talking about there. So things I don't like about the movie, the Justice League scenes, like we were saying earlier, they were the most shoehorned in scenes in like any movie I've ever seen. I thought they were ridiculous. The Flash coming out of a portal saying she's the key, and then completely being like, oh, that didn't happen in Justice League.
Brief little interjection here. I absolutely hated the Flash in Justice League.
Oh, I did too. He's absolutely horrendous.
So I guess the positive here is he's only in one scene.
No, that's one scene too many. One scene too many in the movie. No, I think that, I don't know, and I think I've heard rumors about this, but I think that it was a producer's choice to put a lot of the Justice League scenes in the movie.
That makes a lot of sense, actually.
And whoever greenlit that should be ashamed of themselves, because it completely doesn't fit within the context of the movie.
Same with the cyborg creation scene.
Yeah, that whole area. The only one that works is when he's asleep and he's having the nightmare about Darkseid. And he's in, like, you remember the brown coat scene and all the flying things are coming down Batman's way? Because that kind of fits within it's more about his fear of Superman. That fits within the context of the story. But every other one is just, it literally makes no sense. I remember being in theaters, seeing the Flash come out of the portal, and I was just like, what the fuck is going on? This is ridiculous. This makes no sense. Why are you using Flashpoint right now?
Well, I guess the idea is they were building to this Justice League movie, but they need to do it quick in competition to Marvel's.
And that's where they falter.
Yeah. Which is definitely producer decision. They're like, we need to get all these superheroes out as quickly as possible without developing them.
Yeah.
And this is the mess that we're left with because of that.
Bit off more than they can chew. Alright, so next thing, surprisingly, Kyle's gonna like this, and I'm not. The mountain scene.
I don't like it, I just don't dislike it.
Alright. The mountain scene is dumb. It makes sense. Okay, yes, it fits within the context of the movie. But it's a giant time slot in the movie that could have been used for something else. And it could have been that exact same thing they were trying to say in the scene. I'll explain so you have a little bit more idea of what I'm talking about. Superman is depressed because all the people just died, like I was saying earlier. And he goes up on top of a mountain. And he has a vision of his dead father. And his dead father tells him a story about when he ran a farm. And when he ran a farm with his dad, and there was a flood. And him and his dad were able to build a dam to revert the flood somewhere else so his farm wasn't destroyed. And it ended up destroying another farm. And this is supposed to represent, you do one good thing over here, it could cause something bad over here, And that doesn't mean that you shouldn't do the good thing over here, but, that good actions come at a price, kind of. And that's kind of what the movie's about for Superman. He's kind of, wondering or not if he's the good guy, And yes, I understood the metaphor, but...
Which is why the focus should have been more on Superman than Batman.
Yes, and I agree with that completely. I do like Ben Affleck's Batman, but... Man, Henry Cavill got the shit end of the stick because he's the best thing about the movie, in my opinion. I love Man of Steel.
Besides Wonder Woman.
I disagree. I think Henry Cavill's Man of Steel is the closest interpretation we've ever gotten of Superman, and I think it's the closest one we will get for a very long time. I hold him in the same light that most people hold Robert Downey Jr. to Iron Man. And me and you both agree.
Let's not talk about that.
Yes, he's a good Iron Man, and just that.
Even then, he's a terrible actor.
Alright, so... Lex Luthor, there is something I didn't like about Lex Luthor. His backstory. His backstory is told in very short quips about how his dad beat him and no one was there to save him, and that's why he's become the way. But it's very, very short moments of just quick talking, and then it's over. And the way Lex Luthor acts, it's very quick and, hyper and stuff. So, I think only by my third time watching the movie, I fully understood Lex Luthor's motive. So that goes to show that that's just a bad way to tell that story. They should have taken out some of the Justice League scenes, and they should have shown some flashbacks to his backstory.
Sure, I think I fell asleep during... Well, I didn't fall asleep. But I can't even remember what his motive was.
His motive was it's a very it's even confused. It's even hard to like describe properly because it's a bit confusing of a motive, and it's very
Convoluted.
not convoluted, more psychological of a thing. Like it's more about metaphors between like the powers of gods and without power there can be ultimate power there can be no good and all this like kind of shit philosophers have been debating over years and shit like that, right? Personally, I think that for one, it's a comic book movie, so you don't need to be that complicated with that, and break it down, tell it in flashbacks, and allow the audience to understand it a little bit better. Plus, you can fix some of the pacing issues then, because there's a lot of like weird cuts from moments to moments, and I think if you put in a few flashback moments, they're really good filler points to break up that. So I think it was a very missed opportunity, especially since how Man of Steel did like a lot of really cool flashback cuts, and I think it would have lined up really cool for Batman v Superman for it to be flashback cuts, but this time we're doing Lex Luthor. I think that would have been a really interesting take. But
I can
alas,
agree to a certain extent. I'm not going to comment anymore because you already know my stance.
Alright, and now my least favorite thing about the movie, and it almost makes the movie bad for me. It almost, every time I watch it, I want to fast forward it. The death of Superman Lives is my least favorite Superman story arc.
I actually didn't hate that scene personally, but
I like the fight. The fight's cool. The nuke, on the other hand, is absolutely horrendous. It's stupid. It breaks everything that Man of Steel built up. It was taking this more grounded version of these characters and just saying, no, he's Superman from the comics. He's the comic book version now.
No, this again, I think, was a producer's choice.
Maybe.
When you had a lot of backlash against Man of Steel, people were like, whoa. Or the producers were like,
possibly, yes.
We don't like, people don't like this version of Superman. Maybe we should go back to the popularized John Williams and who directed those? Anyways, like 1960s, 1970s.
I don't know who directed them. The Christopher Reeves ones. That's what you're talking about, right?
Yeah. Anyway, yeah. I think the producers decided that it was a safer bet to choose the original Superman over...
You mean the Man of Steel Superman?
No, over that Man of Steel one. They chose the original.
Oh, okay, I see what you're saying. Yeah, I do think producer choice could have played into it, but this is one where I actually am not going to defend Snyder. Because I know for a fact that he's a fan of the Death of Superman storyline. So, and Snyder is the kind of guy, I think, who looks at comics, and you can see it in Watchmen, and looks at a panel, and is like, that looks cool. And he tries to adapt it into a visual representation. So I think he might have looked at the nuclear scene and the Doomsday scenes and stuff and was like, I want to have that in my movie. And if he did, well then, go fuck yourself, Snyder, because you're a piece of shit.
He focuses too much on style and not enough on substance.
I can agree with that, but I think that it's his directing method. Go on, Sheba. Girly.
Alright, what else do you have there?
All this, I'd just like to make one final note about things I don't like. I can live with them. The things that I got out of Batman v Superman were more than enough to make up for the things that I didn't like.
Yeah, you're alone in that opinion.
I am one of the few. No, I do. I always wanted to see Batman fight Superman, and that's how I pictured it happening. I didn't picture it happening super fast. I pictured Batman using every angle for his intelligence that he possibly could, and I pictured it being more like a slow beatdown of him just basically trying to stay in the fight, and that's exactly what I got. I thought the Doomsday fight, while I don't think they should have used Doomsday, I thought it was cool to look at, and the introduction of Wonder Woman into that fight is just the Holy Trinity, just standing there, ready to go toe-to-toe with Doomsday. Like, that's fucking cool. It feels
odd.
But it's cool.
To introduce her character, but I think it was the best thing about the movie in terms of how she portrayed the character, as well as
The fact that she's smoking hot.
Well, that too. But there was a lot of chemistry between her and Batman.
There is, yeah. And unfortunately, that kind of falters in the Justice
Not
League.
romantic chemistry now.
No.
That would be the worst plot line they could ever introduce. But there was an actor kind of chemistry. Like I felt like the two of them were playing off each other with how they did the fight scene.
If you could change only one thing about this movie, what would you change? You get one. Because I know you have a lot.
Okay. I'd make sure the movie didn't exist.
If you could change one thing within the confines of the movie, what would you change? Asshole.
Like one big factor?
Anything, man. Do you want to change a character's role? You want to change something in the story? Anything?
I'd get rid of Ben Affleck and replace him with a different Batman.
Anybody off the top of your head you'd put in his role? It'd probably have to be an older Batman.
Older Batman? Michael Keaton, come back.
Him.
I think that would have been awesome.
It could have worked, actually. That's a topic for another day. But yeah, that's something to ponder. I never really thought of that. If I could change one thing, it'd be the nuke. I take the nuke scene out. I think without the nuke scene, the movie would have. I think personally, it'd probably be one of my favorite superhero movies of all time, and it probably still is. Honestly,
that scene really didn't bother me as much.
Oh my god, it's like it's this world being built, and then it just this small point in the movie where it's its own section to me. It's its own little part that literally doesn't match anything else in the entire story.
There were a lot of things I didn't like about the movie, and the plot was one of them. But I had to say, like, Ben Affleck made that even worse than I could have. So that's why I had to choose him.
To each their own.
Sorry, Ben Affleck, but not sorry.
So yeah, finally, should you buy this movie? Yes, you should buy the extended cut, in my opinion. Or, if you watch the theatrical cut and you absolutely hated it, at least try watching the extended cut. You may still not like it a lot. So, but if you were kind of on the fence with the extended cut, buy the extended version. It fills in a lot of the gaps, and it makes it not a perfectly paced movie by any means, but it makes it a story that makes sense, and you still get a lot of these characters that, if you're like me, you personally loved, you will get to see them do things that you've always wanted to see in live action. Kyle, should you buy this movie?
Definitely not. If you're a fan like me of superheroes, not necessarily the DC universe, then you're going to point out a lot of flaws. And particularly if you tend to overanalyze movies, such as cinematography and story and even acting itself, you're not going to enjoy Batman v Superman. And
that is Review Junction. So yeah, thanks for watching. If you guys want to comment or leave any feedback or anything, we love getting comments. We love getting feedback. We love any criticisms. If you feel like we should be doing something different, just
keep
weigh in,
mind,
man.
Though, these are opinions.
Yes.
So do not attack us for.
Don't attack us, but if you have a
different opinion,
if you have a disagreement, go right ahead, man, and we'll talk about it, man. We'll argue,
Just be civil with whatever you post.
So yeah, thank you for watching, and we hope you enjoyed the show.
Take care, guys.